Abortion legal fight. The U.S. Justice Department files a petition with the Supreme Court over the controversy surrounding an immigrant teen who had an abortion. Heading overseas. The president leaves Washington for a foreign trip. We'll explain why he'll be in Asia longer than first planned. One-on-one with the former chair of the House's investigation into Planned Parenthood. What Tennessee Republican Marsha Blackburn now wants from the Attorney General. And honoring the dead. The Holy Father celebrates a special Mass for deceased cardinals and bishops. We'll have a report from Rome. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, November 3rd, 2017. Thanks for joining us for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Jason Calvi in for Lauren Ashburn. We're tracking updates in the case of an illegal immigrant teen who had an abortion. The Trump administration accuses ACLU lawyers of misleading the government. The Department of Justice tells the Supreme Court, after informing Justice Department attorneys that the procedure would occur on October 26th, Jane Doe's attorneys scheduled the abortion for the early morning hours of October 25th, thereby thwarting Supreme Court review. The DOJ also wants the ACLU disciplined for its handling of the case. Jane Doe entered the U.S. illegally and was at the center of a court battle over the abortion. Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl is dishonorably discharged, but a military judge says he will not go to prison. Bergdahl deserted his post in Afghanistan in 2009 and was captured by the Taliban. His lawyer says Bergdahl has looked forward to this day for a long time. But President Trump calls the decision a disgrace. President Trump lashes out at the Justice Department. He says they should be investigating Democrats. His words come as he embarks on a 12-day trip to Asia. White House correspondent Mark Irons has more. Mark?
Good evening, Jason. The president is extending his trip to Asia by another day to attend the East Asian Summit in the Philippines. The White House released that news this morning. But as he departed for Asia, the president had the Russia investigation into the 2016 election on his mind.
I'm really not involved with the Justice Department. I'd like to let it run itself. But honestly, they should be looking at the Democrats. They should be looking at Podesta and all of that dishonesty. They should be looking at a lot of things. And a lot of people are disappointed in the Justice Department, including me.
His comments came after tweeting several times this morning to criticize his former 2016 rival Hillary Clinton in the Democratic National Committee. Referencing a book coming out by former DNC chairwoman Donna Brazile, the president wrote, "The real story on collusion is in Donna B's new book. Crooked Hillary bought the DNC and stole the Democratic primary from Crazy Bernie." The White House has repeatedly tried to turn attention to accusations against Hillary Clinton and her campaign and away from special counsel Robert Mueller's probe, which is investigating potential collusion between Trump's campaign and the Russian government. Jason.
Mark, I want to get back to the president's trip. I know it's the longest trip to Asia by a sitting president in 25 years. What's on the agenda?
Jason, the North Korean nuclear threat and a call for countries in the region to insist on the hermit country's complete denuclearization will be a focal point of this trip. There will be stops in South Korea, China, Vietnam, and the Philippines. But first, the president will be in Hawaii this evening, visiting Pearl Harbor and paying tribute to the fallen at the USS Arizona Memorial.
Well, thanks for that, White House correspondent Mark Irons. And some researchers worry the new GOP tax plan will lead to less donations to churches and charities. The bill also gets rid of the Johnson Amendment. That means preachers and other nonprofits could soon endorse political candidates. Charitable giving could suffer under the just unveiled Republican tax plan. Indiana University's School of Philanthropy estimates charities could lose billions.
What would be a concern here is that tax benefits of charitable giving would not extend to as many Americans as in the past. It wouldn't be as broad-based and as inclusive.
Right now, a lot of people who donate to charities do itemized taxes. But the new GOP plan would double the standard deduction, making itemized returns less necessary. That takes away one incentive to giving. But Matt Schlapp, the chairman of the American Conservative Union, says not to worry.
People are going to have more money in their pocket at the end of this tax bill when taxes are cut, and I think the American people will continue to be generous.
Another issue Christian leaders are watching is the proposed scrapping of the Johnson Amendment. something Donald Trump promised on the campaign trail.
One of the things I will do very early in my administration is to get rid of the Johnson Amendment.
The current tax code bans pastors from endorsing or condemning a political candidate, or they risk losing their tax-exempt status. Faith and Freedom Coalition's Ralph Reed tells me it's time for that to change.
And that one provision has been used for 6 decades to harass, intimidate, persecute, and silence the faith community on issues that we care deeply about in the civic arena, including life, including marriage, including the sanctity of the family.
And members of the former House panel investigating Planned Parenthood last year referred possible crimes to prosecutors. Now the lawmakers want an update from Attorney General Jeff Sessions. I talked to the chair of that former committee, Tennessee Republican Marsha Blackburn. She's asking for an update within 2 weeks.
We think it's appropriate. We're 11 months since we finished our work. And we thought as we get toward the year's end and we have a new DOJ, we have a new Attorney General, and we wanted to see what was happening with the federal criminal referrals. We had 4. We did 15 criminal referrals in total, and we have 4 of those that are federal referrals. We've been very encouraged with the state referrals. The New Mexico referral, the judge has allowed that trial to go forward. And I was in Texas with the Texas Foundation for Life this weekend, and they were encouraged that their referral, their state referral, will be going forward.
So now Attorney General Jeff Sessions has this reminder
That's
that
right.
you filed back in last winter.
We're ready to see action on these referrals.
And have you heard anything from the Attorney General
We have
besides your
not,
letter?
and this is why we wrote the letter. It is being delivered today. And what we are seeking is clarification on where they are in the process, what they see as a timeline for moving forward on this.
Are you optimistic? I mean, you have a new Attorney General, you have a new president in office. Are you optimistic now?
We're very hopeful. And we thought it was important, as you can see in the letter, all the members of the committee, plus...
all the Republican members.
Right, the Republican members of the committee, plus Congressman Pierce, who is from New Mexico, signed the letter asking the Attorney General for the update.
So what happens now with the select panel? I know your work's wrapped up, you're done with that, but you're looking at laws that are being broken. Is there anything Congress should do right now in the wake of 1 year since you almost wrapped up?
The Values Action Team has kind of taken up the component of what you do legislatively, the Pro-Life Caucus, the Values Action Team. And we have passed out of the House the Pain-Capable Child Bill. We have passed out the restrictions on Title X funding. We think we're going to have more legislation that will be coming in incoming months. But yes, our job was to investigate and find out what was happening and send that to the appropriate authorizing committees and have them move forward with legislation, and that is exactly what we have done. And those committees are moving forward, and we've seen 3 pro-life bills go forward so far this year.
Thank you so much for bringing us up to date, Representative Marsha Blackburn. Thank you.
Thank you.
House Democratic leaders criticized a Colorado baker who refused to design a wedding cake for a gay couple. They claim it's discriminatory.
And when you're engaged in commercial activity, you don't get to say, I don't serve African Americans, I don't serve women, I don't serve Jews. And we should not allow that same person to say, I don't serve LGBT couples.
Jack Phillips says he'll serve anyone, but he won't create cakes that go against his Christian beliefs. He's defending religious freedom and free speech. But Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, filed a brief this week with the Supreme Court. They want justices to rule against Phillips in next month's case. Police prepare unprecedented security ahead of Sunday's New York City Marathon. It comes as the city mourns those killed in this week's Manhattan terror attack.
I mean, New Yorkers are resilient, and I'm still pretty new here, but I'm learning that we just keep going and we just move on.
Makeshift memorials dot the bike path where on Tuesday 8 people were killed. Police plan to keep safe this Sunday's 50,000 runners. Security will include bomb-sniffing dogs and counterterrorism commandos. Iraqi forces mount a major offensive against the last known ISIS position in Al-Qam, Iraq. Iraqi forces free the city's railway station and a number of neighborhoods. The city is in eastern Anbar province on the Iraqi-Syrian border. And Allied forces completely clear ISIS in a Syrian city. The Syrian Defense Ministry says Allied forces and the Syrian army freed the city of Deir ez-Zor. It was ISIS's last major city. And only religious weddings are allowed in Lebanon. But the Beirut Bar Association is pushing for civil marriages. Other attempts to get civil marriages laws on the books have failed. Scientists discover a large secret chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt. It's the first discovery inside the massive monument since the 19th century. Experts say it could help solve the mystery of how the pyramid was built. But the chamber isn't likely to contain any hidden treasure. And Pope Francis celebrates a Mass for all cardinals and bishops who died this past year. It's an annual tradition.
Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
Amen. The Holy Father gives thanks for the clergy's service to the gospel and the church. He says hope does not disappoint. Juliet Lindley is EWTN News Nightly's Vatican correspondent. She joins us from Rome. Juliet, can you tell us more about who this Mass honored?
So, Jason, over the last year, 14 cardinals and 137 bishops passed away. Now, among the more prominent cardinals that died were Carlo Caffarra and Joachim Meissner. Now, both were so-called Dubia cardinals. The Dubia were a group of 4 cardinals who wrote a letter to Pope Francis asking for clarification on certain points of the apostolic exhortation Amoris Laetitia. Now, American Cardinal William Henry Keeler, the Archbishop of Baltimore, also died this year, and he had been a former president of the U.S. Bishops' Conference.
And cardinals are considered the princes of the church. Can you tell us a little bit more about what exactly cardinals, what role they play in the church?
Sure. So cardinals are nominated directly by the pontiff, and they're close collaborators in the governance of the church, something akin to the ministers in a government. And there are currently 219 cardinals, of which 120 are under the age of 80. And if you're under the age of 80, you're eligible to be a candidate for Pope in an eventual conclave, and you're eligible to vote. So 19 of these 120 were created by St. John Paul II, 52 were created by Pope Emeritus Benedict, and 49 by Pope Francis.
So the 49 appointed by Pope Francis, how has he changed the makeup of the College of Cardinals through these appointments?
Well, the pontiff has held 4 consistories to date. Now, consistories are the ceremonies in which new cardinals are nominated, and in a sign of how the church is expanding to what Pope Francis himself calls the peripheries of the world, the number from so-called developing countries have grown. So the number from Africa, the number of cardinals from Africa has grown from 11 to 14. The number of Asians has grown from 10 to 15, and the number from Oceania from 1 to 4. And meanwhile, the number of European and North American cardinals has dropped by approximately 10%, Jason.
Our eyes and ears at the Vatican. Juliet Lindley, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jason.
Pope Francis visits the Roman site where Nazis killed more than 300 civilians. The Holy Father joined the chief rabbi of Rome and other Jewish representatives. The Pope laid a white rose on 10 tombs, and he and the chief rabbi prayed. The mass killing during World War II was in response to an attack on German soldiers. Coming up, Twitter trouble. We'll tell you why President Trump's Twitter account was deleted for a short time last night. And the medical and moral implications of egg and sperm donation.
Pidamos por los cristianos de Asia.
Pope Francis asks you to pray this month for Christians in Asia so they may promote dialogue, peace, and understanding. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jason Calvi in for Lauren Ashburn. Twitter blames one of its own employees for deleting the president's Twitter account. @RealDonaldTrump was offline for about 11 minutes. All it said was, sorry, that page doesn't exist. The account is back online, Twitter says an employee on the last day of employment inadvertently removed the account. And the nation's largest fertility center announces since 1991, 50,000 babies have been born, all due to egg and sperm donation. Wyatt Goolsbee talked to a bioethics expert about the many medical and moral issues.
Joining us now is Jennifer Lahl, founder and president of the Center for Bioethics and Culture Network. She's also the producer of the documentary film Exploitation, revealing the risks young women face to sell their eggs. So Jennifer, you say there are nearly 750,000 frozen embryos in the United States, an incredible number. Can you give us some insight on the health risks a woman faces when she donates eggs?
Yeah, young, healthy women who are not patients have short and long-term risks. The short-term risk can be infection, bleeding, bloating, more severe, this syndrome called ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, where the ovaries get the size of grapefruits, which could cause them to have strokes, or even lose their own fertility. The longer-term risks are less known because we've never studied this. We're asking young women to do something that we've never once studied in the medical literature. But the longer-term risk can be reproductive cancers, breast cancer, ovarian cancers, and also loss of fertility. And of course, long-term problems if they suffer a stroke in the short term.
It's incredible, and most women may not even notice that or note that there's all those potential problems.
No, and they're not told.
Yeah. You also know the fact that in addition to just the health risk, there's also a whole host of ethical problems. What kind of ethical problems are we talking about here?
Well, in my mind, one of the largest ones is the fact that we're asking young, healthy women to do something with their bodies that we haven't even studied. So we can't inform them. So informed consent is meaningless. The second thing is the money. They're offered large sums of money. Where else do you ever see a doctor who offers you a lot of money to do anything? Never. So we have a problem with the ethics of how medicine isn't practicing within its Hippocratic tradition of do no harm.
Sure, and you know the Catholic Church, of course, issued a document about this in 1987, Donum Vitae, that's Latin for the gift of life, saying egg donation is not moral. So what else does this document say about sort of reproductive technology in general?
Well, I think, you know, we've moved from procreation to reproduction. We talk about reproduction, which conjures up in our mind manufacturing, designing, you know, designer babies, babies made to order, babies on demand, babies based on the babies that I want, based on the money I can buy, the money I can spend.
Yeah, it sounds like something out of science fiction, but now it's becoming science fact.
And which leads us back to the 750,000 frozen human embryos. How did we get there? This industry, this reproductive industry that is woefully unregulated, you know, tens of billions of dollars a year, just cranking out embryos that we pick, choose, freeze, throw away, discard, use for research.
Jennifer Law, founder and president of the Center for Bioethics and Culture Network. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
What a fascinating conversation. An Indian nun killed for her faith will soon be one step closer to sainthood. Sister Rani Maria will be beatified at a ceremony in Indore, India. She was killed in 1995 after an assassin stabbed her 54 times. Beatification is the step right before sainthood. And in South Dakota, the cause for canonization is now open for a Native American medicine man. Black Elk was born in the 1800s and could one day become a saint. The Diocese of Rapid City will be investigating the cause. You can learn more about Black Elk and his pathway to sainthood. Just check out CatholicNewsAgency.com. Up next, Rethinking Europe. A Vatican conference focuses on the future. We'll have a report from Rome. And honoring the Lord of the Miracles, a look at an annual tradition in Peru. The church today honors Saint Martin de Porres. The son of a freed slave was born in 1579 in Lima, Peru. The Dominican lay brother dedicated himself to helping the poor. With EWTN News Nightly, I'm Jason Calvi in for Lauren Ashburn. Pope Francis calls on Christians to play a role in shaping Europe's future, a place where migrants are treated as a resource, not a burden, a place where differences are also valued.
È sempre più connotato da una pluralità di culture e di religioni.
The Holy Father spoke at a couple conferences last weekend, including one to European political and church leaders. It came a day after the regional parliament in Catalonia declared independence from Spain, while Britain negotiates its exit from the European Union. Lauren Ashburn spoke to a priest in Rome about the Pope's speech.
Father Shannon Bouquet is president of Human Life International. He joins us from Rome. Welcome to the program, Father.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Lauren, this evening. Thank you for having me on.
The Pope spoke about the need to protect life during his talk to European leaders. Why do you think it's important that Europe preserve its Christian roots?
Well, we know that Europe, in the sense, has lost a sense of its root with regard to human life. We've seen the birth rate really plummet, and so a sign of the loss of hopefulness in the sense of what life brings. And when we have a sense of hope, we are open to life, we receive life, we welcome life. And I think the Holy Father made a beautiful point to remind the Comosé, the community of the bishops and those with them, of the importance of working to build a mentality that opens itself to human life again.
Abortion is mostly legal in Europe. There's a big fight brewing in Ireland. What does your group, Human Life International, do, Father Bouquet, to support pro-life efforts in Europe?
Well, we work very much throughout Europe, and as we do throughout the world, helping to educate people on the beauty of human life. As John Paul II said in Evangelium Vitae, we have to talk about, loving life, respecting life, serving life, and helping people to defend human life again. And so this is part of our educational apostolate, to help people to see the beauty of protecting every human life. And particularly in Ireland right now, it's a major battle because we see that the Catholic countries like Malta, Ireland, the Philippines are under attack. And so the biggest thing we can do is to help re-educate people about the beauty of human life, the dignity of every human life, just as our Holy Father just did with the Comosé group, again, just to remind them of the importance of talking about the beauty of and dignity of human life.
What are your goals specifically in Europe?
Well, the main goal is just to help people to once again reclaim their Christian root. Again, the Holy Father made note of this, is that much of Europe has lost a sense of that root. They've closed their minds, they've closed their hearts, they've kind of fallen into this secular mentality. So the biggest challenge is to re-educate people on the beauty of human life. And as the Holy Father said, we're not just citizens, we're just not those in the military, we're just not those who are enslaved to this world, but that we truly are made in the image and likeness of God, and that we are human beings, and that we're not statistics, we're just not numbers on a piece of pad, that we are truly contributors to building this culture and to see human life for the beauty that it is, and that every one of us must protect that life. And so I'm very grateful to the Holy Father for raising this to the conversation, which is what we've been trying to do throughout Europe.
Thank you so much, Father Shannon Bouquet, President of Human Life International. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much, Lauren.
Finally tonight, a look at an annual Catholic celebration in Lima, Peru. Hundreds of thousands of people each October pour into Lima's streets. They're there to venerate a 17th century rendering of Jesus Christ called the Lord of the Miracles. It's credited with everything from curing illness to protecting the coastal city from earthquakes. The image's trek through the city attracts more than 100,000 people. I'm Jason Calvi for the entire EWTN News Nightly team. Thanks for watching us this week. We'll be back on Monday with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night and God bless.